My name is Amber. The night my relationship cracked wide open did not begin with slammed doors or shouted words. It began with 2 words Ethan threw at me like stones. You're crazy. We were driving home from a dinner party hosted by one of his colleagues. The night had been long, full of laughter and polite chatter, but underneath the music and wine, my nerves buzzed with unease. Ethan had been glued to his phone all evening, slipping it under the table, smiling at messages he wouldn't share. On the drive home, the city lights blurred past, neon and shadow mixing across the windshield. I asked him about the messages, casual words but sharp in my memory. See you soon. Missed you last night. They weren't written like notes between colleagues. They carried something warmer, something dangerous. He laughed. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Just dismissive. Amber, you're crazy, he said, shaking his head like I was a child misreading a book. His voice was smooth, like he had practiced the line. He even reached for my hand, as though a brush of skin could erase suspicion. You always overthink. That word dug under my ribs. Crazy. Not just a denial, an accusation. A label. A way to twist my clarity into delusion. I stayed silent the rest of the ride, staring out the window while my heart thudded in my chest. His laughter echoed in my ears long after the music from the party had faded. Doubt had whispered for months. That night it screamed. At home, Ethan tossed his keys on the counter, humming as if nothing was wrong. He kissed my cheek, asked if I was tired, and then drifted into the bedroom. Minutes later, I saw the glow of his phone screen under the sheets. He typed quickly, smiling in the dark, before rolling over and closing his eyes. I lay beside him, rigid, staring at the ceiling. My chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, my mind replaying every late night, every vague work meeting. Every time he had set his phone face down, the picture sharpened. A pattern, not a mistake. When his breathing deepened into sleep, I slipped quietly from the bed. The apartment was dark except for the faint hum of the fridge. I sat at the kitchen table, wrapping my arms around myself, whispering the word again and again. Crazy. He wanted me to believe it. He wanted me to doubt myself instead of him. But I wasn't crazy. I was awake. The next morning, Ethan rushed through his routine. He said he had an urgent client meeting. He didn't kiss me goodbye. He barely looked at me. He grabbed his jacket, his phone, and left with a speed that made my stomach twist. I stood by the window watching his car pull away. Something told me not to let it go. My phone buzzed and I glanced at the screen. A notification from the location-sharing app we had installed months earlier when we still believed in transparency. I had nearly forgotten it existed. My thumb hovered before I tapped. A map opened. A little red dot blinked, showing the exact location of Ethan's car. At first, I expected to see him heading downtown toward his office. But the dot moved in the opposite direction. Across the river. Toward a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets where we knew no one. My pulse quickened as I zoomed in. The car stopped in front of a modest, pale blue house. A name appeared on the screen. Sabrina. The breath left my body in a rush. Sabrina. The name matched one of the contacts I had glimpsed in his messages, the one with the looping texts. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the map. My hands were cold, my heart hammering, but my mind was suddenly clear. This was no paranoia. This was no mistake. That night, Ethan came home smiling, humming as though the day had been perfectly ordinary. He kissed my cheek, dropped his jacket, poured himself a drink. He had no idea I had followed his trail straight to another woman's doorstep. I watched him from across the room, nodding as he talked about traffic, pretending to listen. My fingers brushed the edge of my phone in my pocket, where the screenshot of the GPS map now sat in my gallery. Inside me, a vow crystallized. I would not let him gaslight me again. I would not scream, I would not beg. I would not let him twist the truth into my weakness. I would gather. I would wait. And when the time came, I would show him, and everyone else, exactly where the GPS had led. The morning after I watched Ethan's GPS settle outside Sabrina's house, I moved through the kitchen like a ghost. The coffee brewed, the toaster clicked, but the world felt distant. Ethan walked in wearing his easy smile, his tie knotted neatly, his watch polished. He kissed the top of my head and said, "Big day today," as though nothing was out of place. I stared at his wrist. The watch glinted in the light, and I wondered if Sabrina had noticed it when he rested his arm on her bedpost. I forced a smile and asked, "Will you be late tonight?" He hesitated just long enough for me to see the truth flash in his eyes. Then he recovered. "Probably. Client dinner." I nodded, stirring sugar into my coffee, though my pulse raced. Client dinner. His favorite excuse. When he left, I sat at the table and pulled out my phone. The screenshot of the GPS map stared back at me. I zoomed in, memorizing the street name, the number on the mailbox. I whispered it to myself like a secret mantra. That afternoon I drove there. Not close enough to be seen, just enough to glimpse the pale blue house at the end of the cul-de-sac. The curtains were drawn, but I saw a car in the driveway. Ethan's car. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. I didn't knock. I didn't scream. I just sat there, memorizing the scene, burning it into my memory. Proof didn't always come in the form of paper. Sometimes it was the image of your partner's car parked outside another woman's home in the middle of the workday. When I returned home, I pulled out a notebook. The first page I titled in sharp letters, "The Truth." Under it I wrote, Tuesday, 10:45 a.m. Ethan's car parked at Sabrina's house. GPS screenshot saved. Witnessed with my own eyes. I underlined it twice. My hands shook, but not from fear. From clarity. That evening, Ethan came home later than usual. He smelled faintly of a perfume I didn't own. His hair was tousled, his shirt untucked. He carried takeout in one hand, waving it as though it were proof of devotion. "I thought you'd like a night off cooking." I smiled, took the bag, and set the table. He never noticed my stiff hands. During dinner, he talked about his client meeting. He described the restaurant in vague strokes, details that didn't add up. I nodded, chewing slowly, my notebook hidden in the drawer nearby. Every lie he spoke became another entry waiting to be written. After dessert, when he slipped into the shower, I checked his jacket pocket. A folded receipt peeked out. My breath caught. A boutique receipt. A silk scarf. Paid at 3:12 p.m. The same time his car had been parked in Sabrina's driveway. I photographed it quickly and returned it. Later I wrote, Tuesday, 3:12 p.m. Purchase silk scarf at boutique near Sabrina's house. Receipt photographed. I slid the note into a folder with the GPS screenshot. My case was beginning. The next day I watched his location again. At noon, the red dot left his office and drifted back toward Sabrina's street. My pulse raced as I followed from a distance. I parked a block away, heart hammering, and waited. 15 minutes later, the front door opened. Ethan stepped out, smiling, his tie loose. Behind him, Sabrina appeared. She leaned into the doorway, her hand brushing his arm. He kissed her cheek before walking to his car. I snapped a photo through the windshield. Blurry but clear enough. His gray suit, her white sweater, their closeness unmistakable. That night, when Ethan crawled into bed, I stared at the ceiling, my phone under my pillow. The photo waited, ready to join the others. He kissed my shoulder and whispered, "You know I'd never hurt you, right?" I didn't answer. My silence was safer than words. Before sleep claimed him, I whispered in my mind, "You called me crazy. But soon the evidence will scream louder than your lies." Once I had the first photographs, the first receipts, and the GPS trail, something in me shifted. I was no longer stumbling in the dark. I was building. Every detail, every timestamp, every scrap of evidence would become part of a larger picture. I bought a binder that week, the kind with thick rings and clear plastic sleeves. At home, when Ethan was out working late, I filled the first pages. The GPS screenshot, the boutique scarf receipt, the blurry photo of him stepping out of Sabrina's doorway. On the cover, I wrote in black ink, "The truth about Ethan." At first the binder was thin, but soon it grew heavy. I tracked his movements with the location app. Mondays he left the office around 6 but always arrived home closer to 9. Tuesdays the red dot parked outside Sabrina's house for hours. Thursdays he vanished entirely. His phone calls conveniently dropped. Each time I logged the data, date, time, location. Each time, I cross-checked with receipts pulled from his jacket or bank statements printed discreetly from our shared account. One Thursday, the GPS hovered near a lakeside and 30 miles away. My stomach dropped. I drove there myself, parking far enough to watch without being seen. Sure enough, Ethan's car sat in the lot. At sunset, I saw him step outside with Sabrina. She wore a red dress, and he carried a bottle of wine. They walked inside together, laughing. My hands trembled as I lifted my phone and snapped photos until they disappeared into their room. That night, while Ethan texted me about being held up in meetings, I filed the photos under a new tab in the binder Trips. The lies piled up as neatly as the pages. At work functions, I began listening closely. One colleague joked lightly, "Ethan must have a second home these days. He's always disappearing for long lunches." I smiled politely but etched the words into my memory. Later, I wrote them down and tucked the note into the binder. Even hearsay could help build the frame. At family dinners, my sister noticed my silence. "Amber, are you okay? You barely touched your food." I wanted to tell her everything, but not yet. The binder was still growing. Proof is strongest when there is no room for doubt. One Saturday, Ethan claimed he was golfing with friends. The GPS told another story. He was back at Sabrina's. This time I parked closer. Through the living room window, I saw them together on the couch, his arm draped over her shoulders. The scarf he had bought was around her neck, bright against her pale skin. I lifted my phone and took photo after photo, each click a nail in the coffin of his lies. When I returned home, I added them under a new tab, Gifts. Next to the photos, I slipped in bank statements highlighting purchases, jewelry stores, restaurants, boutique hotels. Every dollar he spent on her was a theft from the life we were supposed to be building. At night, I rehearsed my silence. When Ethan brushed my hair back and whispered, "You're too tense, babe, relax," I smiled faintly, hiding the storm behind my eyes. When he boasted about promotions, I nodded, filing his arrogance away for later. The binder grew so thick I had to start a second. I labeled it Stage 2. It contained duplicates of everything, in case the first went missing. I stored it at my sister's house without explanation. She raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. I kissed her cheek and said, "Just hold this for me. One day I'll tell you why." By the end of the month, I had constructed more than suspicion. I had a case, photographs, GPS logs, receipts, statements, even his own words, copied from text messages where he called Sabrina his safe place. I printed them all and highlighted the lines that cut deepest. One night, as he slept beside me, I opened the binder on my lap and traced the words I had written on the first page. The truth about Ethan. My fingers lingered there, steady now. He thought he had destroyed me with one word, crazy. But soon I would show him who was truly blind. By the time the second binder was full, I realized I couldn't carry this weight alone anymore. Proof is strong, but support makes it unshakable. If Ethan was going to face the truth, I needed witnesses, allies who would not let him twist the story the way he twisted me. The first person I turned to was Claire, my oldest friend. She had known me since high school, long before Ethan came into my life. We met at a quiet cafe on a rainy afternoon. She slid into the booth across from me, studying my pale face and restless hands. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I set the heavy binder on the table and pushed it toward her. She opened it, eyes scanning the first page, the GPS screenshot, the boutique receipt, the blurry photo of Ethan and Sabrina on the porch. Her lips parted, her breath caught. She flipped page after page, her face shifting from disbelief to anger. By the time she closed the binder, her hands were trembling. "Amber," she whispered. This is undeniable. He's been living a second life." I nodded, my throat tight. "And he called me crazy." Her eyes hardened. "No, you're not crazy. You're brilliant. Patient. You've built something no one can argue with. When the time comes, I'll be there. Say the word, and I'll stand beside you." Her loyalty wrapped around me like armor. The second person I told was my sister, Rachel. She had always been protective, but I hadn't wanted to drag her into my storm until now. One evening, I invited her over for dinner. After we ate, I handed her the second binder, the backup I had hidden at her house. She frowned as she flipped through the pages. Silence stretched between us as she examined each photograph, each receipt. When she finally closed it, her eyes were wet but fierce. I always wondered about his late nights. I told myself I was overreacting. But you were right to dig. "Amber, you can't face him alone. Tell me how I can help." I placed my hand over hers. Keep this safe. And when the time comes, you'll know what to do. Her grip tightened. I'll be ready. Still, I needed more than friendship and family. I needed precision. I needed law. That's when I went to Evelyn Carter, a lawyer recommended by a colleague at work. Her office was sleek and minimal, her expression sharp. I laid the binder before her, explaining everything from the anniversary dinner Ethan had ruined with his secrecy to the GPS trail that led me straight to Sabrina's bed. Evelyn listened silently, taking notes, her brow furrowed in concentration. When she finished reviewing the evidence, she leaned back in her chair. You already have more than enough for divorce proceedings. Financial misappropriation, infidelity, emotional cruelty. Legally, your case is airtight. Not yet, I said firmly. I don't just want to leave. I want the truth to be undeniable. I want the people who've believed his stories, the colleagues who've seen me as paranoid, to know exactly what he did. Evelyn's gaze sharpened. Then you need timing. A stage. Somewhere he feels invincible, so the fall cuts deeper. I nodded. He has a charity gala in a month. He's giving the keynote. The spotlight will be his. That's when I'll take it from him. Evelyn tapped her pen against the desk. Then let's prepare. I'll draft the legal documents. Once you expose him, we'll file immediately. He won't have time to recover. I left her office with a business card in my pocket and resolve burning in my chest. That night, as Ethan lay beside me, scrolling his phone and chuckling at unseen messages, I whispered in my mind, your stage will become your prison. Your words will become your chains. Claire, Rachel, Evelyn, my circle was strong now. The binders were no longer mine alone. Their weight was shared. Their truth carried by voices ready to echo mine. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. And soon, Ethan would learn that calling me crazy was the biggest mistake of his life. Once my allies stood with me, the fog of doubt lifted completely. The fear that had weighed me down turned into something sharper, focus. With Claire's loyalty, Rachel's protection, and Evelyn's precision, the pieces of my revenge began to fall into place. The opportunity came from Ethan himself. One evening he waltzed into the kitchen, grinning, and announced, the foundation asked me to be the keynote speaker at their charity gala next month. Big night. Donors, colleagues, press, the works. He kissed my cheek, already lost in his dream of applause. You'll be there, of course. We're something stunning. I want everyone to see us together. I smiled faintly, nodding. Inside, my heart beat with steady fire. Yes, Ethan, I thought. I'll be there. And you'll never forget that night. The next day, I gathered my allies at Claire's apartment. The binders lay open across her dining table, pages spread like wings. The evidence was overwhelming, but Evelyn reminded us. Don't drown the audience in detail. Focus on the cleanest, sharpest cuts. Show them what he cannot deny. We mapped out the counterplan. Step 1, the core proof. The GPS data. That was the heart of everything. A blinking dot doesn't lie. It showed where he was when he was there and how many times. Evelyn suggested we enlarge the screenshots one by one. His car parked outside Sabrina's house, the nights he claimed to be working late but was 30 miles away at the Lakeside Inn. Step 2. The supporting evidence. Claire volunteered to create a slideshow. After the GPS screenshots, we'd show receipts, like the silk scarf from the boutique near Sabrina Street. Then the photographs of Ethan leaving Sabrina's doorway, his tie loose, her hand on his arm. Finally, the texts where he called her his safe place. Layer by layer, the story would tell itself. Step 3, backups. Rachel insisted on redundancy. What if the projector fails? What if he pulls the plug? She would carry printed packets of the most damning pages, the GPS screenshots, the boutique receipt, the photo of the kiss on Sabrina's porch. If technology failed, paper would speak. Step 4, positioning. Michael, my brother, agreed to attend quietly. His task was simple. Guard the technical setup. If someone tries to interfere, he said, I'll stop them. His presence gave me comfort. Step 5, the delivery. This part was mine alone. We debated long into the night about how I should reveal it. Claire urged me to interrupt him mid-speech to shock the room. Rachel cautioned against looking too emotional. Evelyn spoke last, her voice firm. Calm is your weapon. Don't rage, don't cry. Let your composure make his lies collapse. When he believes the applause is his, rise, present the proof, and let silence do the rest. I practiced in front of them. My voice steady, my posture strong. Short sentences. Clear truth. No wasted words. I rehearsed lifting the GPS screenshot high, saying, "He called me crazy. But this map shows exactly where he spent his nights. Not at work. Not with clients. At Sabrina's house. At her bed." The room went quiet each time I spoke the lines. Even Claire shivered. "Amber, that's it. That's the dagger." Step 6. The aftermath. Evelyn promised to file the divorce papers the morning after. Letters would go to his donors and colleagues with copies of the proof. "The court of law will follow the court of public opinion," she said. "By the time he tries to defend himself, his reputation will already be ash." We refined every detail. Claire tested the slideshow transitions. Rachel folded the backup packets into slim envelopes. Evelyn drafted the paperwork. Michael memorized exits and sockets. The night before the gala, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the binders. I pulled out one GPS screenshot, the one that mattered most. Ethan's car parked outside Sabrina's house, 11:42 p.m. The night he told me he was working late. I slid it into my purse, my hand lingering on the paper. Ethan came home humming, kissed my cheek and said, "This gala will be unforgettable." I smiled faintly. "Yes," I whispered. "Unforgettable." He didn't hear the steel in my voice. The night of the gala shimmered with chandeliers and champagne. From the moment I stepped out of the car, the plan pressed against me like a second skin. My emerald dress flowed around my ankles, my purse clutched tightly against my side. Inside it, folded with care, was the GPS screenshot that would end Ethan's performance forever. The ballroom glowed gold. Donors laughed over cocktails, colleagues clinked glasses, photographers snapped flashes that lit the marble floors. At the center of it all stood Ethan, charming as ever. His suit was crisp, his smile confident, his voice smooth as honey. He looked like the man I once thought I loved, but now I saw him clearly, an actor standing tall on lies. When he spotted me, he placed a hand on my waist and whispered, "Perfect. You're perfect. Tonight we're unstoppable." Not we, I thought. Only me. I scanned the room, noting each ally in position. Claire lingered near the sound booth, her laptop hidden inside a sleek leather folio, ready to launch the slideshow. Rachel sat 2 rows from the front, her clutch stuffed with backup packets. Evelyn waited near the side doors, her phone in hand, prepared to file legal papers at sunrise. Michael stood near the projector, a watchful shadow. We were ready. The evening's speeches began. One by one, hosts thanked donors, praised the foundation's work, and built anticipation for Ethan's keynote. My fingers brushed the folded screenshot in my purse, steadying my breath. Finally, the announcer's voice rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Ethan Marshall." Applause thundered. Ethan rose, adjusting his tie, striding toward the podium as though the night belonged to him. He began with practiced ease, weaving stories of leadership, dedication, sacrifice. The audience leaned forward, nodding, admiring. I glanced at Claire. She was ready. Rachel's hand rested on her clutch. Evelyn gave me a nearly imperceptible nod. But then, just as Ethan launched into his second anecdote, the projector flickered once, then died. The screen behind him went black. Claire bent over her laptop, tapping furiously. She checked the cables, her face pale. Michael crouched near the equipment, his jaw tight. He shot me a look, shaking his head slightly. The slideshow, the carefully crafted chain of proof, was gone. A ripple of unease stirred in me, but before I could react, I saw her. Sabrina. She slipped into a seat in the 4th row, dressed in scarlet, bold and deliberate. Her eyes locked on Ethan, her smile daring. I felt my chest tighten. She wasn't supposed to be here. Ethan saw her too. For a heartbeat, his words faltered. Then he leaned harder into the performance, his voice rising with new energy. He gestured with his hands, his watch glinting under the chandeliers, his eyes darting toward her like a secret signal. The audience noticed. Whispers began in the rows nearest the front. A woman leaned to her neighbor, murmuring, "Who is she?" Claire caught my gaze from the back, mouthing, "What now?" I froze. The plan had been to wait for Ethan's triumphant ending, then drop the truth with the slideshow. But now the slideshow was dead, and Sabrina's presence threatened to twist the night. If I waited too long, she might seize the moment, claim the stage, or worse, leave with him to whispers and speculation. Rachel shifted in her seat, her clutch half open, ready to pass out the packets. Evelyn's eyes narrowed from the side door, urging me forward. I touched the envelope in my purse. Thin paper. Ordinary ink. But in this moment it felt heavier than stone. Ethan raised his voice, spreading his arms as if embracing the entire room. Tonight, he declared, I want to dedicate this speech to the people who've supported me. Those who believe in my vision. His eyes flicked towards Sabrina. The smile on her lips widened. The audience applauded warmly, unaware they were clapping for a lie. My pulse pounded in my ears. This was slipping. The projector was dead. Sabrina was glowing. Ethan was thriving. If I didn't act soon, the truth might drown in applause. I rose slowly from my chair. The scrape of wood against marble echoed louder than the clapping. Heads turned toward me. Ethan froze mid-sentence, his confident smile faltering. I walked toward the stage, each step deliberate, my purse tight in my hand. The envelope pressed against my palm like a weapon. The room fell silent. The silence in the ballroom was heavy as I stepped closer to the stage. My heels clicked against the marble floor, echoing like a countdown. Every face turned toward me. Ethan's voice faltered, his polished words crumbling. Amber, he said into the microphone, his smile strained. Sweetheart, what are you doing? I reached the podium and turned toward the audience, not him. My hand slid into my purse, pulling out the envelope. My fingers unfolded the GPS screenshot slowly, deliberately. He called me crazy. I began, my voice calm, carrying across the hall. When I asked about late nights, secret messages, the perfume that wasn't mine, he laughed and told me I was imagining things. But facts don't lie. And tonight, I'm done being silent. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I lifted the paper high. This is a GPS record from the app Ethan and I installed when we trusted each other. This dot? His car. This address? Sabrina's house. The time? The very night he told me he was working late. The audience shifted, whispers spreading fast. Heads turned toward Sabrina in the fourth row. Her smile froze, her face pale under the lights. Ethan grabbed the microphone, his voice cracking. This is absurd. She's twisting things. I cut him off, my words slicing through his denial. Twisting? Then explain the receipts I found in your pockets. The silk scarf from a boutique next to Sabrina's street, purchased at the exact time your car sat in her driveway. Or the photo of you stepping out of her doorway, your tie undone. Should I show them that too? The room erupted. Donors murmured in shock, some covering their mouths, others shaking their heads. Claire rose at the back, holding up her laptop. Even without the projector, she opened it wide so the nearest rows could see the slideshow she had prepared. The images flickered across the small screen, GPS screenshots, receipts, photographs. Guests leaned closer, eyes widening. Rachel stood and began quietly passing the backup packets down the rows. Paper whispered like wildfire spreading through dry grass. Ethan's face blanched. He reached for me, desperate. Amber, please don't do this here. I stepped back, steady. Don't? You did this. You brought her into our life and called me crazy when I noticed. You thought gaslighting would keep me quiet. But tonight, everyone can see exactly where you've been, Ethan. At her house. In her bed. The audience gasped again. All eyes turned to Sabrina. She rose abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. This is pathetic, she snapped, her voice shrill. She's jealous. He told me you were finished. He said you didn't understand him like I did. Her words betrayed her. The murmurs grew louder, harsher. A woman near the front hissed. Shameless. Ethan spun toward Sabrina, panic in his eyes. Sabrina, stop. But she kept talking, her anger exposing more truth than she realized. Do you think I wanted to sneak around forever? Do you think I wanted to hide? I told you to leave her. The room went dead silent. The donors, the colleagues, the press, they had all heard. Sabrina clapped a hand over her mouth, too late. I folded the GPS record carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Thank you, Sabrina, I said softly. You've confirmed everything. Ethan's hands trembled as he gripped the podium. His confidence had shattered. His mask crumbled into dust. Amber, please, we can talk about this at home. I shook my head, my voice cutting through him. Home? You already built another home. And you filled it with lies. The chandeliers above seemed brighter, harsher, exposing every crack in his performance. The applause he had expected was gone. Instead, the room pulsed with judgment. I turned toward the audience, my voice steady. This is the man you've trusted. The one you've supported. He let me carry his life while he spent his nights with her. He told me I was crazy. But tonight you've seen the truth for yourselves. And with that, I stepped down from the stage, my allies rising to join me. Claire's eyes shone with pride. Rachel's grip on my arm was firm. Evelyn already typed on her phone, the divorce papers primed to file. Behind us, Ethan stood frozen at the podium, his world collapsing under the weight of the very evidence he had dismissed. The ballroom was no longer a place of polished speeches and polite applause. It had turned into a courtroom. Every pair of eyes weighed Ethan. Every whisper carried judgment. I felt the tension shift as the first murmurs grew louder. I saw him thank her last month. Was that the woman at the dinner? She admitted it herself. Words spread like fire, circling the room faster than Ethan could breathe. Ethan gripped the podium, his knuckles white. Please, he begged, his voice cracking through the microphone. This isn't what it looks like. Amber is twisting things and Sabrina. She misunderstood, but no one was buying it. A donor, a tall man with silver hair, stood from the second row. His voice carried above the noise. Ethan, I've supported your projects for years. But integrity matters more than charm. You betrayed your wife and tried to lie to us all. That's not leadership, it's disgrace. A ripple of agreement swept the audience. Heads nodded. Chairs shifted. Sabrina tried to defend herself, her voice sharp and desperate. You don't understand. He promised me. He told me he was leaving her. The room erupted again. Laughter from some, gasps from others. A woman near the back shook her head. Leaving her? While asking Amber to stand at his side tonight. Shameful. Sabrina's face reddened. She grabbed her purse and muttered, I don't need this. Her heels struck the marble floor as she stormed toward the exit. The slam of the double doors echoed like a verdict. Now Ethan was alone on the stage. Alone with the weight of every eye in the room. One of his colleagues whispered loudly enough to be heard. All those late nights, all those excuses, it makes sense now. Another donor pushed back his chair and rose. I won't be renewing support. I won't back a liar. Ethan tried again, his voice breaking. Amber, please don't do this here. Can't we talk? I stood tall, my voice steady but firm. This isn't me doing anything, Ethan. This is you. You built your lies in the dark. I just turned on the light. The room fell silent at my words. And then slowly someone began to clap. Not for Ethan. For me. Claire stood in the back, her palms striking together with deliberate rhythm. Rachel joined, her chin high. Michael followed, his strong hands echoing through the hall. One by one more guests joined. It wasn't thunderous applause. It was sharp, deliberate, and heavy. Each clap landed like a gavel. A collective judgment. Ethan staggered away from the podium, his eyes darting between the audience and me. You don't understand, he pleaded. She set me up, she made me. But no one listened. The applause grew louder, drowning his excuses. The host of the evening stepped onto the stage, his face pale. He cleared his throat, trying to salvage dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can conclude the program here. Thank you for attending. His voice shook, betraying his unease. Guests began to rise. Some left quietly, others stopped to squeeze my hand, whispering, You were brave. Or, he deserved this. One woman leaned close and said, I once thought I was crazy too. Thank you for showing us the truth matters. Ethan stood abandoned near the podium, the spotlight cruel on his pale face. His once perfect suit looked rumpled, his smile gone, his hands trembling. Without Sabrina, without the donors, without his charm to shield him, he looked small. I didn't linger. I walked toward the exit with Rachel at my side, Claire close behind, Evelyn already on her phone preparing the final strike. Michael trailed near us, a protective shadow. I didn't look back, but I didn't need to. The sound behind me told the whole story. The applause had faded into murmurs. And Ethan had been left in the ruins of his own lies. The morning after the gala, I woke to sunlight spilling across the curtains. For the first time in months, my chest felt light. The silence in my apartment was not hollow anymore. It was steady, peaceful. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, overflowing with messages, emails, and missed calls. Clips of the gala had already circulated. Someone had filmed me holding up the GPS record, my words carrying through the ballroom. Strangers online were sharing it with captions like, "She exposed him with facts, not rage. Proof beats gaslighting every time. He called her crazy. She showed him the map." I scrolled, my lips curving into the faintest smile. The truth had left the confines of that ballroom and entered the world. Claire called first. "Amber, you were extraordinary. Do you realize what you did? You didn't just save yourself. You gave every woman in that room permission to trust her instincts." Rachel arrived mid-morning with coffee and bagels. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "You didn't break. You didn't let him win." Michael texted one sentence. "If he shows up, call me. I'll be there in 5. His loyalty was steady, protective. But Ethan couldn't stay away. Around noon there was a knock at my door. I opened it just a crack, and there he stood. His suit wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed, his hair unkempt. The watch on his wrist, once gleaming with pride, now looked like a chain. "Amber," he pleaded, voice hoarse. "Please, we need to talk. You destroyed me last night. My donors are gone. My colleagues won't return my calls. Sabrina won't answer me. You've taken everything." I studied him for a long moment. The man who once gaslit me into silence now looked like a hollow shell. "No, Ethan," I said quietly. "You took everything from yourself. All I did was hold up a mirror." His eyes filled with tears. "I was weak. I was stupid. But I love you. 10 years together, you can't throw that away." I shook my head slowly. "You threw it away when you chose lies over honesty. When you called me crazy instead of listening. I am not what you have left. I am what you lost." His face crumpled. For a moment I thought he might argue, but then his shoulders sagged. He turned and walked down the hall, his footsteps dragging. I closed the door gently, the lock clicking like a period at the end of a long, painful sentence. That evening I met with Evelyn at her office. She had already drafted the divorce papers. "Your case is airtight," she said firmly. "The evidence is overwhelming. You'll get restitution for the money he spent on her. You'll keep the apartment. By tomorrow this will be in motion." I signed with a steady hand. My signature curved across the page like a bridge to freedom. When I returned home, I brewed tea and sat by the window. Outside, children rode bicycles down the street, their laughter carrying on the breeze. A neighbor watered her garden. The ordinary world felt extraordinary to me. For the first time in years I felt present, whole. My life no longer revolved around waiting for Ethan's key in the door or his excuses for being late. My life was mine again. The binders still sat on the shelf, but they no longer felt heavy. They weren't cages of pain anymore. They were monuments, reminders that I hadn't been crazy, that I had seen the truth, that I had chosen strength. I lifted my teacup, whispering into the quiet. To truth, to freedom, to never doubting myself again. In the weeks that followed, life unfolded in quiet but powerful ways. The noise of Ethan's downfall echoed through our community for a time. Colleagues whispering, donors distancing, Sabrina vanishing into another city. But eventually the storm moved on. What remained was the calm I had fought for. The divorce went through quickly. Evelyn guided me with sharp precision, and Ethan, cornered by evidence and abandoned by allies, didn't resist. The financial records, the GPS logs, the photos, all of it painted a picture he couldn't erase. The court awarded me restitution for the money he had squandered, the apartment, and peace. Ethan tried to call a few times. Once he left a voicemail. His voice cracked, begging, promising he could change. Another time his tone shifted to anger, accusing me of ruining his life. I didn't answer either. I had already decided. His voice would never again live rent-free in my mind. Sabrina disappeared quickly, leaving only whispers behind. Some said she moved in with family across the country. Others claim she found a new man to lean on. I didn't care. Her part in my life ended the moment the truth left her lips at the gala. As for me, I began to reclaim myself piece by piece. I painted the bedroom a soft blue, erasing the memories of nights I'd spent lying awake, staring at the ceiling while Ethan texted in the dark. I joined a local writing class, letting my voice find new places to live outside the silence of suspicion. I spent weekends with Rachel and her kids, their laughter filling spaces that had once felt heavy. Claire and I took a trip to the coast, where I stood barefoot in the sand, staring at the horizon, realizing how wide life could be without chains. The binders still sit on my shelf. Sometimes I touch them not out of pain but as a reminder. They are proof that I wasn't paranoid, that I wasn't crazy. They are proof that patience and truth are stronger than gaslighting. Every page whispers the same lesson. I was right to trust myself. One evening as I sipped tea by the window, Rachel asked me, "Do you ever regret not leaving sooner?" I thought about it. About the nights of silence, the pages of proof, the careful patience. And I shook my head. No. If I had left sooner, I would have left in doubt. By waiting, by gathering, by building the case, I didn't just walk away, I reclaimed my power. That is what I want you to hear if you are listening to my story now. Betrayal doesn't mean the end of your story. It means the chance to rewrite it. If someone calls you crazy for noticing cracks, remember this. Gaslighting is the last defense of someone afraid of the truth. You are not crazy for seeing what is there. You are not crazy for demanding proof. And when you have it, you don't need rage or chaos. You need calm. Because calm delivered at the right moment is devastating. The greatest revenge isn't shouting. It isn't throwing things or burning bridges in a blaze. The greatest revenge is holding up the truth like a mirror and letting them collapse under their own reflection. I was the woman who was told she was crazy, but in the end it was his GPS, the trail of his own choices, that betrayed him. And it was me, standing calm with proof in my hand, who walked away free. So here is my toast: to truth, to freedom, to never silencing yourself again. This was my story. And now it is finished. But yours, it is still being written. Trust your instincts. Gather your proof. And when the time comes, speak with clarity. Because you deserve peace. You deserve freedom. And you deserve to never be called crazy again.